I grew up around 10 and 14 foreign students from the age of about 4 to about 14. Students from Lebanon, from Panama, from Malaysia were sort of the community that I grew up with. And I have a very vivid memory of street parties that we had. I am in full geisha outfit, like the big black hair, red dress, my face is white, full makeup, sitting there eating a very British tea. For me, that image really encapsulates my childhood. I remember I wanted to fly. I wanted to be an air stewardess. And then unfortunately, I'm 1.5 inches too short to be an air steward.
I didn't know there was a height requirement.
Time it felt incredibly glamorous. You could travel anywhere in the world. You could see all these different countries. And of course, at the time, I didn't realize that you could do that with your job or with your keynoting. If you had said to me, what is the one job you would hate to do when you grow up? I would probably say talking on stage. I was presenting at Nigeria, and that was one of the largest stages I've ever been on. It had embedded videos and stuff, and nothing worked. I ended up, I think, doing the first half of the presentation without slides. Luckily, I knew my stories, but I had to reshift. When you find the things you're passionate about and you talk about your stories, I actually think a lot of the stuff you've just said just falls into place.
Welcome back to Beyond the Keynote. I'm very, very excited this week to be speaking to Kate Bravery, all the way from Dubai. Kate is a corporate psychologist, head of talent advisory, author, board member, strategic HR advisor, and keynote speaker. So she has plenty of time to be speaking to me today. I think she's a very busy woman. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Carmen. I only just moved to Dubai, so it's really strange hearing someone say that. But yeah, it's my new location.
Well, we'll have to hear all about your journey and how you ended up in Dubai in due course in this amazing conversation that we're about to have. Can't wait to dive in. So You've had the pleasure of speaking on many stages around the world now as part of your job and the position that you hold at Mercer. So I want to hear all about that, but I think people sometimes look at speakers and think that they just magically got to those amazing stages and magically became good at what they were doing and able to stand up in front of thousands of people and deliver messages in a really succinct and interesting way. But that's not normally the case. Most people have to learn along the way, and often it's the experience that you've had in your lifetime that helps you get up on that stage and share your wisdom with the audience. So we'd love to know if we can rewind all the way back. I shouldn't say it like that, should I? But I would say that to myself. I would say all the way back to me right now too.
It's a little while now, Carmen. You're okay.
To when you were a little girl growing up, do you remember what life was like? And do you ever remember an adult saying, Kate, what do you want to be when you grow up? And do you remember what you responded with?
I do. So there's probably two questions there. So my childhood was in the UK, and I grew up around between 10 and 14 foreign students from the age of about 4 to about 14. So both my parents worked. We weren't wealthy, so they worked long hours. I hardly saw them. Trying not to emulate it again, but those habits are hard to break. Both workaholics.
Yes.
But we had my mum left her job in order to bring up children. But she needed to earn. So she actually had 14 foreign students. So students from Lebanon, from Panama, from Malaysia were sort of the community that I grew up with. And they were the ones that helped me with my homework. They were the ones that taught me to speed read. They were the ones that taught me about debating, particularly Malaysia and China. They did a lot of debating, which in the cheap schools in the UK, you don't really get a chance to do. So that definitely was my childhood. I have a very vivid memory of, I think it might have been the Jubilee, or no, maybe it was I think it was the Jubilee, or maybe it was the marriage of Prince Charles and Diana. I can't remember, but I was about 6 or 7 at the time. And there's a picture of me on these big trestle kind of street parties that we had, and we're all eating outside on the street parties, and it must have been fancy dress because I am in full geisha outfit, like the big black hair, red dress, box on my back, like everything is immaculate. My face is white, full makeup, sitting there eating a very British tea. And for me, that image really encapsulates my my childhood. I remember kids from school would come round and, we would be having fondue because we had Swiss students and they'd never had fondue, or we'd have spaghetti bolognese, which felt very exotic then. There was no chips and stuff. Of course, what I craved was, chips and chicken nuggets. But so my childhood was very, very multicultural, and I learned a lot about just the fact that where you live in the world really shapes who you are as a person and the options that you have. And I've always been fascinated in cross-cultural differences, which I talk about, and also I've lived in many countries myself. But I do, now I look back as a much older person, think, some of that probably shaped some of it.
Absolutely.
And then obviously when you have students, they're always curious about, gosh, you're living in the UK, land of opportunity. You have so many options. Where did you want to be? And maybe influenced by all these people coming in and out of my life for very short periods of time was I wanted to fly. I wanted to be an air stewardess. And then, unfortunately, I'm 1.5 inches too short to be an air stewardess.
I didn't know there was a height requirement. You got to reach the cabin.
Well, there used to be. I don't know if there is now, but there used to be. Obviously, that's an industry which has changed a lot over the years. But at the time, it felt incredibly glamorous. You could travel anywhere in the world. You could see all these different countries. And of course, at the time, I didn't realize that you could do that with your job or with your keynoting. For me, it was the opportunity to go and see all these exciting places that I was hearing about every day.
Amazing. Do you know what? I would be a terrible air hostess because I am a terrible traveler. I obviously travel a lot for business and have for many years. And I always look at the air hostess and think, goodness, you're very good. You're very good at what you do. And I don't know how you do it because I have to take things to not be sick. I have to take things so that my ears don't explode and all sorts of things. So I'm too busy looking after myself to look after the rest of the plane.
Well, you're definitely in the right job then. I would say though, the job was a lot less glamorous than it was in those sort of Pan Am days that I was imagining. I think it's a pretty tough job to do today, and I think you get a lot of grief.
Yes,
I'm glad I didn't take that
true. Well, I mean, what an incredible upbringing, though, to be exposed to so many different cultures. I actually don't know anybody that I've ever met that has had an experience like that as a child, and it would absolutely open up your mind to the whole world and make you think potentially much bigger than a lot of us that didn't grow up that way. So, do you remember as a child whether you were happy to be speaking in front of people or to be performing in some way in front of people, or were you quite shy?
I was very sociable, so really happy to meet new people and do all of that. But standing up and talking in class was definitely not something I enjoyed. And I think I probably know why now more as an adult. And that's they put me in remedial English because my spelling wasn't very good. And now I know that it's dyslexia. And my brother, because when my brother was born, he was six years later. He again was really bright, but just wasn't doing very well at school. And he got statemented, I think, at about, which is the sort of the UK term for being assessed for dyslexia, at maybe really young age, like 6 or 7. And he all went into like specialist dyslexic school. And then we found out my mum was dyslexic, which is why I was sort of getting pretty low scores on my spelling tests as a kid. But I think when you struggle with words, standing up and having to read out of a book, which is sort of what they expected when you were like 7, 8, is absolutely harrowing. And getting one word wrong and then being made fun of definitely doesn't set you up for speaking as a keynote speaker.
No, not at all.
So if you had said to me, what is the one job you would hate to do when you grow up?
Yes.
I would probably say talking on stage.
Oh, wow. Isn't it funny how
Isn't
things
it?
change and
Yeah.
how far we come? All right, so let's fast forward a little. And do you remember? Did you go to university after high school? Did you have career aspirations at that point and followed a certain path to get there?
Yeah, I was pretty focused on path. It was about 11 or 12. I found out about psychology, and I just thought it was the most fascinating subject. And I was fortunate to be at a Catholic school where actually from the age of 13 you could take psychology as a GCSE. So I elected to take psychology because I just thought, gosh, the opportunity to understand about human behavior, why different people behave they do, why different people have different outlooks on the world, all of that type of stuff fascinated me. So I did GCSE psychology from the age of 13. Then I did GCSE. Then I did A-level psychology. Then I did my degree in psychology, cognitive psychology. Then I did my master's in occupational psychology, which is business psychology. Then I spent a couple of years getting my chartership in my first job to be a chartered organizational psychologist. And then later, when I was actually in Sydney for about 7 years, I did my MBA. And with my MBA, I did a lot more of sort of psychology and business. And no surprise, I'm a corporate psychologist today, working for Mercer, one of the largest professional services firms in the world, that sort of blends strategy, risk, and people. And I lead our talent advisory practice, which basically is psychology at work. So I've been on this path. I think it was the right one for me, but if not, I definitely got it wrong. But yeah, no, I chose pretty early what subject I was fascinated in and kind of stayed the course, which is a bit unusual. But saying that, I've lived and worked in many different countries, which I've really valued. And it's given me the opportunity to do a whole range of things from, psychometric profiling, employee experience work, designing employee value propositions, designing performance management, succession, HR tech, skills-based frameworks. It's such a diverse area that I don't feel I got stuck in a rut. But
Yes.
I pretty much have been on that path since I was 12.
Wow. That's amazing. And what are, I don't know, 3 of your favorite things that you've learned either through your study or on the job when it comes to psychology? I gave you 3. I didn't stop at 1.
Look, I do think growing up with a lot of people from Asia, really, because they'd come over to study in the UK, I was surrounded by people that really placed a very high value on study and qualifications. And that was quite different, I think, to my UK environment, which was all about being cool. Now, obviously, during my clubby days, did I go off the rails a little? But yes, because in the UK, being cool and being, and kind of that was really what was valued. I mean, as long as you were cool at school, doing well, being top of the class at like maths or sciences really was not cool. But I had this other influence at home, so that probably was a big piece. So I'm really grateful for that. I know that when I was doing my MBA at Macquarie University, there was I can't remember her name, an amazing teacher. And she was running a program on public speaking, basically.
Okay.
And she flew in and did this kind of 6-week program, I think once a year, and it was very difficult to get onto the course. So it's Macquarie MBA program. And everyone said she's transformative. And she was amazing. She did a lot of coaching politicians. She'd worked with some of the presidents in the US. She'd worked with speakers actually out of the Middle East. And she just blew my mind. She did some fundamental lessons about anyone can get up in front of people and speak. You should be nervous and want to rush to the toilet, because why not? Why do you want that inside of you when you're speaking? Because the minute you're not nervous, you shouldn't be up in front of people. She really sees that as kind of the fuel. She taught me that every lecture she came up and she had full written notes. She was like, you're giving me your time to be here, and this this course is not cheap.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do you the respect of being prepared. And so, I have basically a speech I'm going to deliver to you today. And she taught me that being well prepared then gives you the flexibility to have engagement, to joke, to do all of the other stuff around it, because you know your content really well. And she also taught a lot around just being succinct, which sometimes I struggle with. And thinking about, what are the 3 points I want to make, or how can I use alliteration here to make it more memorable for the listener? It was just really impactful.
Yes, she sounds amazing, and I love a couple of things that she said, and I do talk to clients about it as well, because so many people want you to have a magic formula to stop them from getting nervous at all. And I acknowledge that sometimes nerves can be debilitating, and you don't want to be so nervous that it's restricting your voice, or, you're shaking and people can physically see that you're nervous. And nerves fuel energy. And so if I think, I grew up in theatre. I loved it, but I was actually very shy as a child, and I would always get a little bit nervous before a show. But it was a good thing, because you need more energy out on stage than you do in a one-to-one conversation. Correct. So if you can use the nerves for good, I always say let's use the nerves for good, then it's a positive thing and not a negative thing. So I think she was obviously of a similar wavelength. I mean, I don't think it's great if you have to go throw up beforehand. Most people just say they're going to throw up. When I actually ask them, have you ever thrown up? They're like, oh no. I'm like, okay, let's stop saying we're going to throw up.
I think the prep thing is interesting, because so many people say to me, oh, you're so off the cuff, you're so relaxed. But I have prepared. I haven't just, flown across the world and just rocked up on stage. I mean, I've probably been up to like maybe 1 or 2 the night before rehearsing, so that when I get there, the energy is really positive, because I actually love that moment before you go on the stage now, because I go, there is nothing more you can do. There really isn't. This is the golden moment. This is the time where you just got to focus on your breathing, realize it's not about you, it's about the audience, and tune into their energy, because there's nothing practical else you can do. Like, trying to cram those notes in the last few minutes, that's not the right strategy to get you in the mindset. And now I've learned to enjoy that, but I only enjoy that because I've done the work.
Yes, and I love that too. And so again, so many people look at speakers and think, oh, they get paid so much for just 40 minutes on stage, or whatever it ends up being, a lot less sometimes these days too. But that's not what you're getting paid for. You're getting paid for everything you've done leading up to that moment, because there should be a lot of work that's been involved in you giving your best to the audience when you're up on stage. And I absolutely agree with the fact that when you are prepared, really, really prepared, you can be 100% present with your audience. And again, I say this to clients all the time, because so many people will say to me, oh, I'm actually a much better speaker off the cuff. I'm just better that way when I don't prepare. And I'll say to them, you feel better that way. You're not necessarily better that way. And what's happening is you're not rehearsing enough. You've only rehearsed to a point where you're potentially struggling to remember what it is that you are trying to rehearse. You need to rehearse way past that, so that it's ingrained in you, and then you can be 100% present with your audience. And it's okay to go off track, because you know exactly how you're going to get back on track. Yeah, that's where you can make
jokes. I mean, I get people on Keynotes come back and go, she's funny. That's because I was prepared.
It's always nice when people find you funny, but you're not a comedian. I'll also have people say to me, how do we be funny? Like, should I put some jokes in there? And I'll say, well, I don't know. Are you funny or not? Because you don't want to try and be a comedian if you're not.
I think you can be funny within the area that you know. Otherwise, you could find yourself on the wrong side of that. But honestly, we spend so much time at work and at conferences. If you're not going to get your jokes from there, where are you going to get them? When
I worked in corporate as well for over 18 years. we used to have a sales trainer come across from the UK, and he was very, very good. And he was actually Scottish. So he had a Scottish accent from the UK, and he had all sorts of jokes. And my team would help roll out his messages in between him visiting. So we really supported his message. So I sat through a lot of his sessions and I knew all of his jokes by the end.
Oh,
but it didn't
not
sound
so funny the
same
second and third time,
the
I'm
accent.
sure.
Sorry, what did you say?
They're probably not so funny the second and third time.
Yeah, no, all the 100th time. He told them well, though. He told them well. All right. So we've ended up getting to stages and talking about stages. I'd love to hear about your experience in this area, because you have done a lot of speaking, but always within a corporate role. It's not something you've gone and done separately as a separate business. And I think being a speaker in a corporate role can make a huge difference to the business and also to your personal brand, and being able to command positions and jobs that you love and where you can really make an impact. How have you found that speaking has helped you in your career?
Well, I agree with you that I think every leader today needs to inspire other people. So I think whether you're in a leadership role or whether you are, a professional speaker, the two are sort of merging. And I personally have found it really useful to sort of say, for this next year, what do I want the key messages to be? I mean, I talk a lot on the future of work, on AI, on, how we all need to work different and what's broken about work. And I've been fortunate at Mercer to run our global talent trends research for 10 years. So I've got a lot of kind of insights to bring to the table. But I think taking that time once a year to sort of step back, normally around Christmas and January, to sort of say, what's fresh? What's a different message that people can remember, chew on, that's going to linger sort of post the presentation? And then make sure that I build my presentations and my videos and stuff around that. I think that's really important, but it's also in a corporate setting, sometimes where the people who work inside of our organization hear about our points of view. So at the moment, we've got a new point of view out on leaders need to manage paradoxes. They need to be good at strategy. They need to be good at strategy execution. They need to be good at managing tasks and focusing on people. But I'm pretty sure the thousands of people that work for Mercer are probably not going to read the point of view. But they might listen to a podcast when I'm talking about it. They might catch a presentation that I'm doing in their thing where I'm keynoting on it. So actually, I find today a lot of what we say on social media ends up sort of influencing the internal narrative. And for me, I really want to make sure that it's not just me who can stand up on stage. I want everybody who has the opportunity to be in front of clients to be challenging their client to think different. And they're not going to be able to challenge them to think different if they don't have those research points at their fingertips, if they don't have a compelling 4 trends every leader's got to make progress on this year. So a lot of what I'm doing is role modeling. It sounds a bit elitist. It's not role modeling, but I'm trying to say, we've done the work on all the research. We've, synthesized it down into the 4 things everyone needs to focus on. And we've got some key insights about what high-performing organizations are doing differently. And so for me, the presentations I do are like almost a rehearsal for everybody else. They'll just pull out the bits that are most relevant for them, but they'll pick it up from social media. They'll pick it up from podcasts. They might come and, obviously I do a lot of keynotes for Mercer as well. So at some point in the year, they're going to see me up on stage. And I get a lot of notes of people just saying, oh, I'm going to steal that. Or that's a great anecdote. Or what a brilliant story. Or, oh, wow, can I actually speak to the client who did that? So I find it's just a great way of amplifying the messages we want to be known for, and just a more fun way to train people. I mean, gosh, being trained on how to present something, it's a pretty boring use of your time. But being inspired by someone who you think, God, I want to share that message with my client is, I think, a bit cooler. So that's how we use it in sort of my area of the business.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so true. It's the stories that you tell on those podcasts and in the keynotes and in the presentations you're doing that people will remember and will retell in whatever context they're in. It could be a sales meeting. It could be training someone else within the organization. I think in my corporate experience, that is similar in that I used to do a lot of speaking in my role, and I used to train my team to speak a lot within their roles because of what they had to do. And it was the stories that I would tell when I was delivering my sessions that they would then retell in their sessions, and so on and so forth. And it's very powerful because when you get team members that have been around for a long time as well within an organisation, it really does help to set the culture and the tone of the business in a very positive way. So tell us about some of the stages you've been on. Are you someone, do you prefer having a smaller audience or a larger audience, or do you enjoy both? And what do you find the differences to be?
So my personal preference is actually facilitation over keynoting.
Okay.
So I love the opportunity to do a keynote for a client at their annual conference, where I then get to work with the group. So let's say they've flown in between 30 and 120 leaders, and then we get the opportunity to actually work with them through the day. So they're actually saying, if these are the most critical trends or innovations that are happening in here, how do we bring this back to our world, and what's relevant for us? That's my favorite, because then you can be a bit more live, because I'm more technical. So I'm technical because I actually do this work with clients as well as the research. There's always going to be some people saying, oh, we're struggling in moving to a skills-powered organization, or we're having difficulty in simplifying our assessment provider portfolio, or who's doing really innovative things with AI and assessments, or what's the new way of, listening to employees without surveying them. We have a response to that. We've got examples, but of course you're never going to put all that in a keynote because it would just be boring as hell. Yes. But I love that dynamism. So that's my preference. In terms of stages, I remember, maybe 10 years ago, I was presenting at Nigeria, and that was like one of the largest stages I've ever been on. And then I got up there and I'd had like embedded videos and stuff, and like nothing worked. And I ended up, I think, doing the first half of the presentation without slides. Again, be prepared.
Yes.
Luckily, I knew my stories, but I had to reshift, because if you've got some video, I think I had like a video at the beginning and a few other things. I had to slim it down, distill what the key messages, and I had like literally 10 minutes to kind of refocus that. But it was a funny one, because I remember outside they had lots of stalls, and they had like everything from like clothes and animals, as well as like leading HR tech. So it was just bizarre. The other one that I remember, I remember going back, maybe 10 years ago, was in Germany. It was a Mercer one, and they have a session every year called Human Works. And the stage was circular. And I remember I got up there in the morning, and then all the chairs around this very, very intimate circular stage. And so I had to go, okay. I'm a walker anyway on the stage, but I was like, I haven't been on such a small circular stage in heels. And so I just had to got up there and think, right, I don't want to have my back to people, but if I keep doing this, I'm going to go like, I'm going to get dizzy. So that one was like, you've got to actually think about the space that you have and how to do that. The other one that I've had to think about space, there's a really good conference that happens every year in Portugal, in Porto. It's the International Management Conference, QPS, I think it is. And the stage is massive. They have like 5 different sort of backdrops behind. It's the longest one I've ever been. And so I've done that twice. And the second time I didn't wear heels. And that was a really good reason, because it's just so long. If you pace, you'll just be exhausted. And then recently, Ari in Australia asked me to do a really interesting keynote. They wanted a keynote deep dive, and it was 90 minutes long.
Okay.
And we were just chatting about this before. Everyone's got shorter and shorter and shorter. Can you do your keynote in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes? And I'm like, you're going to fly me over for like a 20-minute session? Really? I'm quite technical. I can be quite helpful. So that was just blew my mind, but I loved it, because it really gave a chance to land some things that I think are real trends that are completely different to how we've been thinking about work and talent in the last few years, and then get the audience to reflect. And so I really, really enjoyed it. I found it quite decadent. And people said it didn't feel like 90 minutes because you could really plan it. So yeah, quite like that.
So
and then the big one is like
becomes
HR tech in the US. I think when you go to those massive stages there, they're quite fun because everybody there is selling HR technology. So if you turn up and talk about the human side of the equation and human adoption and the impact of AI on jobs and the impact of AI on careers and the trajectory we're on and what really drives human adoption of new ways of working, I think the audience really loves it just because it's such an antidote to all of the other tech.
Very refreshing. Well, there was just so much in everything you said, then we're going to have to go back.
Sorry.
We can't stop there. I love the 90-minute keynote's really interesting because it sort of becomes a container, doesn't it, for the ideas that you're introducing to the group to, as you said, give them time to reflect. But it's not quite a workshop when it's
because it was an auditorium with everyone in a big theatre. So that stumped me initially because I went down we'll do lots of breakouts on the table, or we'll do some Slido, but it's quite a traditional auditorium. But I think when you do that, again, it's about thinking about structure and what's your strategy for conveying your message, because there's 1,000,001 things I want to share with the audience.
Yes.
They don't want to hear 1,000,001 things from me.
And I think that can be the hardest thing when you're an expert. And I work with a lot of very deep experts. And the hardest thing is, like yourself, you are so knowledgeable in your area of expertise. It's being able to choose what you're going to share with your audience. So I'd love to know, do you have a couple of tips or strategies that you use to break up that 90 minutes? Because it is really challenging to hold a room for 90 minutes. I think it's an art. So what a couple of, for the people that are listening at the moment, do you have a couple of tips of what you implemented to be able to hold the room and make people say things like, it didn't even feel like 90 minutes, like that was incredible?
Yeah. Look, I think we are living in an age where people want to have memorable experiences. So just standing on the stage and speaking for 90 minutes, doesn't matter how compelling a speaker you are, is probably not going to cut it. And everyone says to me, oh, don't use videos, don't you think, because we just want to hear from you. But I think with 90 minutes, it can break it up. We're also living at a stage where people's time is really precious. So if they're not going to get something really practical that they can implement that afternoon or the following day, I think we've missed the mark because their time is precious. And we're also living in an era where anyone can get access to any information. So if I spend my time at a presentation, like in the recent one we had in Sydney, and it's not contextual to what's going on in the Australian market and the challenges of workers in Australia, I'm going to turn off. I think gone are those days where a great presenter takes their presentation and flies it around the world, because our worlds are so unique. You know, workers in different cultures have very different expectations. I see that every year in our research. You know, the whole HR and world of work has evolved because of different laws and different restrictions. So, you know, ChatGPT is the first place I always start these days in terms of what's been in the press. I mean, use that for your prep. And then even on the morning, make sure this morning, what's been in the press in the last 48 hours relating to the world of work or HR professionals. I think if we, you know, making sure that it's really going to resonate with the things that the people in the audience have to deal with is the surefire way for that to be a memorable presentation. And then, of course, the middle is what you're going to bring to the table. And that's what's going to need to be unique and having just a great structure. Because if people know where you're headed and it feels like it's chunked, it's going to feel really quick. But if you're just
Yes.
rambling from topic to topic to topic, they're going to lose the will to live, and so are you.
That's so true. I know I often say to clients, we're going to help you build out an incredible opening because it's so important to start strong. Of course, you need a really strong finish. And you need signature moments in the middle that continue to hook your audience in, because the middle is where a lot of speakers just lose the room. So I love that advice. I really want to talk about the round, because I think it's quite unique that you had to deliver in a circular event space. So I always remember there was a production of Jesus Christ Superstar in Australia many years ago. It had very famous Australians in it that, for those of you in other countries, are probably not going to know who I'm talking
Neighbours,
about.
Was it?
It was, sorry?
Wasn't Jason from Neighbours?
No, it was John Farnham. Have you ever heard of him? Yes, he was Jesus. John Stevens was Judas, and Kate Bravery was Mary, and they were all sort of pop stars / rock stars within the country, all amazing singers, and it was done in the round, it was called. So they had the round stage in the centre of the auditorium. I think it was the Rod Laver Arena. For those of you around the world who watch the Australian Open, that's where the Australian Open is played, the tennis. So it was, and it was incredible. And sometimes they had their back to you, and sometimes they were facing you, because they would continue to move the scenes, I guess you'd say, and the songs that they were singing around that stage, so that every part of the audience had them facing them at some point in time. So that was my very long way of saying, how did you handle the round? I know you didn't want to make yourself dizzy, but did you make sure that you did face each side of the round?
I did. So I think I got there in the morning and I wasn't on till the afternoon. So I had a really good chance to kind of plan my strategy, which I sort of practiced at lunchtime. I can't remember all the details of it now, but I do remember that I think at the time I was talking about 4 global talent trends that organizations need to pay attention to, which means that you can put that into 4 quadrants. And I remember I went to one quadrant to present on one of them, and then I kind of did a swivel to ask the kind of reflection question to the audience behind me. And I sort of repeated that pattern. So I had like a strategy of how I was going to use the space, which I knew, at least for the beginning part, was going to sort of share it. It also changed what I wore as well, because so often you're presenting out, so you can have all the cords and everything down the back. And I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm comfortable how my butt looks in this outfit. And then I've got a jacket to hide the cords. So that was the other thing I thought through. So I think it's just one of those things, it's another, how you use your space, I think is becoming more important, particularly with these bigger stages. And I don't always think we give it enough time to actually plan that. So my recommendation is don't rock in the morning. Make sure you're there the day before. See someone who's actually presenting on the stage, so that you can actually have a strategy of how you want to show up. Yes. Because I think, just in the way we used to vary our tone to get intimate and have a conversation, you can use space in the same way. And I think particularly for longer presentations, that can really help.
Oh, it makes a huge difference how you use the space. And I completely agree. Not only is it good to be there the day before to be able to check it out the day before, it's also good because flights are often not on time. So if you're relying on your flight to actually arrive on time for you to deliver that same day, I think you're playing Russian roulette.
Absolutely. And embedded videos and things like that. Doesn't matter how many people tell you it's all going to work seamlessly. You need to be there for the checking it. Yes. I once couldn't make a fly and I got someone for the local office to go on my behalf, take my phone, and I said, you're going to run the check as if you're me, and you're going to dial me in. I'll still be at the airport. And even though they thought it was fine, I said, no, that's in the wrong place. And so I'm so glad I do that. So even when you've got that nagging go, oh my God, am I being really annoying? Oh no, don't. I mean, people pay a lot of money to come to these conferences, but it's not the money that is about coming to the conference. It's their time out of their busy schedules. So if they've decided to be in that auditorium with you, you need to make sure that's the most impactful 20 or 30 minutes. So you want everything to work seamlessly.
I completely agree. I had a client years ago who was speaking at one of our major sporting grounds in Australia, and I kept saying exactly that to him. I said, you need to turn up, you need to check the mics, you need to make sure it's all working, da-da-da-da-da. He's like, oh, yeah. And then one of the times he had to speak, because he was the president of an organisation that was speaking, and they had a comedian come in, a professional comedian that was, again, well-known in Australia, to MC. And the comedian was right on it. From the moment he walked in, he wanted to check the sound, and the microphones kept cutting out. So this is a major arena in Australia that shouldn't have these sorts of technical issues, but the mic kept cutting out, and the comedian would not start until they'd fixed it. And my client came back to me. He's like, oh, my goodness, you wouldn't imagine, but this is what he did. And it was getting a bit awkward in the end. And I thought, oh, maybe we should just do it. But it was exactly what you'd told me to do. And I said, imagine if his microphone cuts out right on the punchline of his joke. It's all over for him at that point. Like, he's lost the whole room. His whole act is done. So that's why it was so important for him to make sure the tech was working. And it's the same with a speaker. It doesn't mean it's always going to go right. Like you said, I think there was another example you spoke about where the video didn't work. That still might happen, but you're setting yourself up for success. You're giving yourself the most chance that it's going to go well by turning up early and checking the sound and making sure everything's in the right order and getting familiar with the space. So an acting teacher of mine a very long time ago, and she actually said in relation to auditions, but I'll always remember, she said, don't visualize what you can't control. So when you're rehearsing for your keynotes, you don't always know exactly the stage setup or exactly how big the room is. Obviously, do as much research as you can and find out whatever you can. But like you that turned up and, oh, it's a round stage in the middle of the venue. I wasn't expecting that. If you can rehearse it in lots of different ways so that you're not completely thrown, and like you and I were talking about earlier, Kate, that you know it so well that when you turn up, you're calm enough to think, oh, wow, I'm about to deliver this in the round. That's interesting. Haven't done that before, but I've now flown in early, so I've given myself enough time to be able to think and adjust. And I know my stuff so well, it's not going to throw me. And now I can give the best performance possible on the actual day.
I also think equipment really varies as well. So last week I was in Italy, and big auditorium. It was the keynote for one of Mercer's signature events there. They are a HR observatory once a year. This is their keynote. And then I went back to be mic'd, and they were like, oh, no, it's hand mics. Oh. And I've been so used to having mics that suddenly I'm like, okay, so which one does my clicker go in and which one am I it just took me a minute to kind of go, okay, I haven't
got
done
to hold two things now.
Yes. Yeah, just threw me for a second because, you practice. What you practice is not what it's going to be like in the environment.
Yes. Yeah, that is.
Not very ambidextrous.
I mean, most people do have lapel mics these days, but yes, good to know that sometimes you have to hold a microphone still, and then you have to be careful what you're doing with that hand, because if you're used to using it with gestures, it's all of a sudden going to stay there.
That was the piece. That was the piece. Yeah.
Well, one of my clients who is opening in New York wanted to control the environment. So we're very excited because we're hiring theatres in different places around the world. So in New York, it'll be off Broadway, so that we can completely control the environment and the equipment that will be used right down to the lighting and the sound and any multimedia elements that we'll be adding into what I call a keynote show. So that's when we're elevating from a standard keynote to a blend of traditional keynote speaking and performance. So
That's
I'd love to
exciting.
shift into that. It sounds like you're already doing incredible things in your keynotes that do elevate it and set you apart from others, especially in your industry. Let's pick something that you just loved speaking about, and let's see, because we get to dream in this podcast with no budget, which is always fun. We don't need to be responsible at all. We can do whatever we want and stage your keynote in a way that we just think is going to be really epic and incredible for the audience. So let's pick something. If you want to describe a keynote that we can work with, and then let's see what we come up with.
So the one I did last week in Italy, it was a bit of an old one, but it was at the end of the year for them. They wanted it on global talent trends. So because we're actually just doing the new global talent trends at the moment, I updated it with a lot of what's trending in AI at the moment. I think everyone wants to talk about AI, skills revolution, future of work, those type of topics. So that's what I was talking about. So I just dropped a couple of things that I thought made it look a bit more interesting.
Yes. Tell us.
So at the beginning of the presentation, rather than, so we were talking a lot about all these different mega trends that are interconnecting that we all have to grapple with, whether it is the march of AI and digitization, whether it is delivering on ESG and sustainability goals, skills are the new currency of work, changing expectations around flexible working. Typical leaders today have a huge amount of challenges. And that means for them to be successful, they have to traverse lots of different boundaries, whether it's digital boundaries, temporal boundaries, generational boundaries, cultural boundaries, etc. So that was sort of how we were talking about. But it ends on quite a pessimistic note about all of this is against a backdrop of uncertainty. And then I wanted to get people excited again, because we have a lot of data from the Global Uncertainty Index, or how close we are to midnight, the doomsday clock, closest than ever. So I wanted to kind of lift it. So then I did a piece around, but we're getting glimpses of what the future can be. And then I use like a shutter technology, like we had those old cameras. And so these little shutters opened and closed with glimpses of the future of how AI is changing, gene therapy and healthcare and helping us to live longer and prosperous, how AI is enabling robotics now to have the same dexterity to enable them to do Tai Chi, which was in the recent Robot Olympics. And also allowed me to talk about the agentic workforce and how a lot of those offices, when you look at that kind of shutter, will be quite silent because you'll have 70% of the workforce, 70% of the office work being done by an agentic workforce. So it was just another way, which was visually, I think, interesting to see these kind of shutters open and close and see these glimpses about, as hard as it is today to scale your AI projects, the prize is quite exciting. And we're getting tantalized by these sort of future visions. It was a really simple bit of PowerPoint.
Well, it doesn't have to be
videos behind those little snapshots. But I think
did it have the sound, the sound when the shutter? Good. I need to go into sound effects.
You can get everything now video wise, and so I think finding just ways that can work with your presentation just to make it a bit more visually stunning, in addition to the content. I have a lot of data that I'm normally sharing around what's different about what workers want in Italy compared to Europe or rest of the world, and where Italy might be exceeding or lagging, and the kind of so what factor. And then I closed with a case study that was very close to the audience. So I said, we're right at the end of the year, you're all doing your business planning for next year. Let's ask ChatGPT, kind of live, what Italian HR leaders are most known for. And so it was live, and ChatGPT came up with the answer and everything. And then I juxtaposed it to the things that AI can do in the future. So we do a lot of work on pulsing what skills are going up or down in value and the changing price of skills premiums. And so there was some where Italy is really well placed and some where they're not. And then I went into a case study of an HR leader sort of moving from the UK to there. And I actually showed some of her data around how she's likely to be successful traversing those boundaries. So how her style is going to play out cross-culturally, how her style is going to allow her to execute. So they had some real practical takeaways that as they were doing their strat planning, they were aware about their potential blind spots and some of the gaps they might need to close in their audience. So those are the two new bits I kind of added, and the rest was the standard stuff.
Amazing. I love it. And I think that's great for anyone listening, because when I say theatrical magic, it doesn't have to be, you know, theatre is large scale productions that have huge budgets, and it's also minimalistic theatre that just has one actor on stage for a whole one woman or one man show, and minimal lighting and minimal sound or music. So it doesn't have to be all the big bells and whistles.
Totally agree.
It still comes down to, where are you actually delivering? So what do you have available to you? Who are you talking to, and what's relevant to them? And how do you elevate the experience in a way that just makes you exceptionally memorable in a world where we constantly are bombarded with messages and information? So I love the shutter idea, and I especially love that you had the sound
I don't think
effect.
people remember the shutter. They probably remember the story at the end, which was like a real live person like them, which was just talking to the audience. You know, I like to do the shutter. I like to think of something that feels a bit novel, because I like visuals, and it gives me a little respite. And so I think if my keynote is not delivering, at least the visuals are going to look fantastic. But it is, I think, when you are confident enough to turn down the lights and tell a story, that it lingers more.
And I think it's the way that you tell a story that can make a huge difference too, because there's I call it laundry lists, stories that are like laundry lists, where it's like, I did this and then this happened and that happened and that. And then there's a really well-crafted story that's more like a Netflix production or a Hollywood movie or a Broadway theatre production that's just really well-crafted and draws you in, and you care about the characters, or you see yourself in them, or and you're holding onto your seat wondering what's coming next. That's an elevated keynote in my mind, rather than someone that knows that stories are a great strategy and so has injected a certain amount of stories, but as a whole, the whole keynote's not, it's not smooth, I call it. It's not like a smooth piece of music that just works together seamlessly and has the audience floating along with you, and before they know it, it's over and they think, oh, I wish that hadn't finished. I wish I could keep going. All right. Is there anything else, any other pieces of gold that you would like to share with our audience before we wrap up our conversation?
No, but I do think that your stories have got to be authentic. I've seen some amazing keynotes where people have not delivered stories, so I don't think you have to do that. But someone once said to me, be you, because everybody else is taken. It's a very famous phrase. I can't remember who said it originally. But I do feel you've got to find the voice that works for you, because you could see an amazing speaker on YouTube and want to emulate them, but it's always going to be a push for you. And then you're just rehearsing something that doesn't feel authentic. When you find the things you're passionate about and you talk about your stories, I actually think a lot of the stuff you've just said just falls into place.
You've got to bring out the performer within, I call it. So it's you up there, you're playing yourself, not another character. And there's a lot of techniques that you can use from theatre and acting that help you perform as your best you. And I agree, it needs to still be authentically you. You're telling the stories, and I mean, you can tell other people's stories, you just need to tell them as someone else's stories, not pretend it's your own. And that's why case studies and all the rest of it work as well. because it's not your actual story, but it's told as a case study. Love that advice. Thank you so much, Kate. I think anyone that listening will have learnt so much today, and whether you're listening because you want to be a speaker or you're already a seasoned speaker and you're looking for a couple of little extra ideas, then I think we all need to go speaking around somewhere, because that will be fun.
The one that's revolving. Maybe that's
a revolving round. That's what we want. That's our aim. Kate, thank you so much. If someone wants to have you on their stage because they want the insights that you can share, how would they get in contact with you?
LinkedIn's always best. I think that's becoming a bit of the universal language now of speakers. So find me on LinkedIn, even if you just want to chat on anything that maybe we brought up today. I've also got a podcast called The New Shape of Work, where we profile companies that are doing really innovative things in the people space. So check that out as well.
Brilliant. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you for letting me drop in and chat. This has been really novel. I've never sort of reflected like this, but it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, here's where you're standing. You can close this episode, think that was fun, and go back to doing things the way you've always done them. Or you can decide you're done being the speaker, the leader that people politely applaud and immediately forget. If you want to create the kind of moments we talked about today, the theatrical, the unforgettable, the profitable, I've put together something that'll change how you think about the stage forever. It's called Beyond the Keynote, Creating Your Illuminated Story. No fluff, no theory, just methodology I use with elite speakers and leaders who are done playing small. Go to illuminatedstory.com/masterclass. And hey, if this episode hit you somewhere, share it, leave a review. It takes 30 seconds and helps more people discover that great speaking isn't magic. It's a game, and you can learn to win it. I'm Carmen Sederino. Don't just speak, illuminate. See you next week.